Hi, I'm Mr.D'Amore. Welcome to Everything Music. Today, I'll be sitting down with a very close friend of mine who describes himself as the sax-playing, Ben Franklin portraying, history-geeking father and grandfather, Mr. Rob Carroll. How are you, Rob?
I'm great, Chris. How are you tonight?
Good. So, a little about Rob. Rob attended West Deptford High School, portrays Ben Franklin, performer, as a musician, soloist, for many different bands and also by himself, obviously, as a soloist. He's also a woodwind, brass, piano, and vocalist. He is also a member and musical director of the Polish-American string band and more. Rob, it is great to sit down with you to chat today. Rob and I have been friends for over 7 years now. We met when we joined the Polish-American string band together around the same time. I believe that was the spring of 2013, I believe. Rob, you know how much I love talking music with you. We have some great conversations about music. Now, I know we don't always see eye to eye with our beliefs.
That's all right.
With our beliefs about music in regards to string band. But we have some great debates with music in general, and we always still remain friends.
Oh, of course. I mean, I believe there's a mutual respect. There's a mutual respect.
Now, that's not what we're here for, the debate today. We are here to talk about your life and experiences in the music world. You up for that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, first off, how old were you when you started taking a liking to music, and how old were you when you first started taking lessons?
Well, the first clue, I really have no idea. My grandmom was a semi-professional singer.
Okay.
And my mom was a gospel singer.
Oh, wow.
And she ran the church choir and Sunday school. And apparently there's a picture of me somewhere, lost to time, and I'm an infant, and she's holding me while conducting the choir. So I literally grew up on the stage. My first instrument is my voice.
Okay.
I sang solo at 5 years old in front of a fairly large church congregation.
Wow.
I've been blessed to have never to suffer stage fright. So as far as it's always been there. It's always been there. It's always been such an integral part of me. As far as lessons, that's another convoluted answer. Growing up in the church, I wanted to play piano.
Okay.
And I took 3 lessons from the woman at the church, who advised me that my fingers were too small, and I should really consider another instrument. And fortunately, my older brother had just given up clarinet, so there was a clarinet in the house.
Okay.
So my mom said, "This is your new instrument." And I go, "Well, I kind of like the drums." She goes, "No, you're playing clarinet."
Oh, the drums.
Yeah. So
always goes back to the drums somehow.
So I really didn't take any lessons. I mean, I came up through the public education system, and I had some great band directors, some guys that had done some amazing things in the professional world on their own, and were public educators, and so I learned a great deal from them through public education. My next lesson was I was getting ready to audition for I wanted to be a classical clarinetist.
Okay.
So, and I wound up taking classical clarinet lessons. Took 6 months of classical clarinet lessons. And long story short, the scholarship happened, and it didn't happen, so that was the end of my classical clarinet dream. As far as lessons, I have one more addendum for the lessons, and that was not long after I graduated from high school, I ran into a sax player playing in a band, and it was a jam band, and he was exactly who I wanted to be. I mean, just an amazing player, amazing soloist. He was electric, absolutely electric. And his name's Alan Weber, who's still very much playing on the scene. I took a year of lessons from him back in the early 80s. and you talk about the relationship between educator, teacher, student, and we are 30 plus years, 35 years later, something like that. We are still very, very close. We are very close, very, very close. Yes,
wow, that's amazing.
I
mean, it's just amazing because a lot of people I talk to that are younger than me, that talking to them about their teachers, and a lot of them aren't in contact with them anymore. Like they get the lessons, and then once they move on, that's the end of it. And I'm like, and I find it very weird because me and my brothers and everybody else I talk to, it's the opposite. Like they're very friendly with them, and they're, you know. And I'm even friends with my former school teachers from way back. Well, not that way back, but you know.
Come on, it's more way back than you want to acknowledge.
All right. Well, let's move on.
I'm sorry,
from that
we're not going to debate. Well, I do want to add that you know, I mean, I didn't put it in my bio, but I'm a teacher. I teach private. Right. I teach private instrumental, and it's the greatest calling. It's the highest calling in the world. It really is, and I've developed with every one of my students that have shown passion and enthusiasm. I've developed a great relationship, and I still talk to students that I had 20. I talked to students 20, 25 years ago, and even though they took instrumental from me for a short period of time, mm-hmm. and they may not play any longer, you know, they just there needs to be a passion there, and I've always respected that, and it's always been very endearing to me.
It's you know, I also teach privately, and
right.
It's to me that's one of the closest that
without a doubt.
There's students that I taught that I would say personally for me my greatest accomplishment is when they would come up to me and tell me that they passed their audition.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of the.
Oh my God, without a doubt.
It's one of the greatest feelings because I feel like I played, and I'm sure you feel
you play an integral part to them achieving their goal,
right.
And it really is. It's a very. I don't want to get too overboard, but it's sacred. I mean, it is.
It is.
And if it isn't, get out.
if you don't think it's sacred and you're not having fun with
get
it,
out it.
Get out of it. Exactly. All right. So, did or do you still have any role models in the music world?
Oh my God! Like every time I go through my Facebook feed,
I know
and see the latest. I saw and you probably saw it. I shared it. This kid, he had to be no more than 14, 15 years old, playing with a sax quintet in Europe.
Yeah.
And I just, I walked past my horns and just looked at him and go, I'm not even talking to you right now.
You stay there and think about what you just did.
Once again, that if you don't find inspiration from other musicians around you, and they may not, they may do things differently technically from you or whatever. If you don't find something in their playing, I mean, if you can. And I've always been more inspired by passion than technical prowess.
Right.
Although technical prowess plays a huge. But if you got the one and not the emotion, once again, get out of the game because you're not all the way there. So, and I'm sorry, your question you just asked me if I have still any today.
Yes.
By name, far too many to mention. Like I said, you just go through your Facebook feed and you find your new one right there. Like, oh my God, I got to go shed. I have to go. You know, I'm 58 years old. I've been playing saxophone since I was 14 years old, and I'm there. Okay, I got to go practice.
Sure, I know that feeling every day. That every time I see something new on the social media or on YouTube, whatever it is, and I just sit there and I'm just like, well. There goes my ego. An ego in a good way, not a bad ego.
No, exactly right.
I feel like musicians should always have an ego. Should not have an ego to the point like saying, I'm better than you.
Or possibly the word's confidence.
Yes.
You need that self-confidence, but at the same time you have to have the humility to recognize a person next to you without going, oh, I hate them. Which it can be difficult. It can be difficult.
All right, so...
I'm sorry, I think part of your question was original influences?
Yes.
Okay. Original influences. Well, I was very fortunate in high school. I got to, through a program, I got to go see the Philly Orch.
Okay.
Like we got to go with my music theory class. We got to go like once a month, and I would go, and I was just in like I was knee deep in. I wanted to play solo clarinet. I wanted to be the solo clarinetist in Philly Orch, and just watching. So whoever that was at the time, and I believe Gigliotti was gone by that point, or he's still there at that moment. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I just have a ton of nameless, faceless classical players that I listened to on all these different recordings. And then, and at the very same time, Maynard Ferguson entered my life.
Oh,
and
the beast.
Somebody I got to know and got to hang out with Dennis de Blasio from South Jersey, and all these amazing musicians that came through there at a time that I was transitioning from classical into other other areas, other disciplines. And part of that transition comes down to, may you rest in peace, Clarence Clemens.
Oh.
Clarence Clemens, I saw him, I was 20, I was 19 years old. I saw him in a gym at Princeton University, and he was there, and I heard him, and he was right there, and his presence, it was just unbelievable. And he was one of my first. And there's a whole slew of Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Boots Randolph. There's just a whole slew in that other genre that I eventually found myself into playing saxophone. And getting back to my teacher, my main sax teacher, he said to me countless times, he said, no one will ever hire you back because you play fast. They'll only hire you back if you sound good.
Right.
Now, if you can combine the two of them, you can have a career.
Exactly. I always find myself telling people that it's great, you can play fast, but it's not always great to listen to.
Yeah, exactly right.
To me, I'm like, I would rather sit back and the tempo could be flying like in a jazz, like just say Caravan, and the tempo's flying off the charts, and then the soloist comes up and they're playing the most simplified solo ever. I think that is more that gets more of a point across.
Well, if the instrument sounds, it has a voice. And in my teaching, you ask any of my students, here in the band, and we are in the rehearsal studio for Polish American String Band right now. Here in this room, the guys in this room will tell you they are sick of hearing me say, the instrument's an extension of your voice. Make the instrument sing. It's an extension of your voice.
It surely is.
And they're tired of hearing it. My students are tired of hearing it. But I'm hoping that somewhere down the line, 10 years from now, in the back of their head, they hear, make it your voice. Make it your voice.
All right. So you said you're a classical musician that you wanted to be. So why the sudden turn from wanting to be a classical musician to what you were doing today?
Well, as I said, I'd achieved, I'd earned a scholarship to study classically, and through I guess I don't want to say a comedy of errors, but a sequence of errors, a sequence of events that it would take way too long to go through. I wound up not having that scholarship. Okay. And actually, I mean, for listenership, through no fault of my own.
we're gonna strike that from the record.
But in any case, so now I go from graduating from high school, getting ready to go to college and study classical clarinet, to not. I wound up getting a job working for the township, collecting trash. It was the job that was there.
Where have you been the past couple weeks? I have trash backing up at my house.
I went through, oh my God, I don't know how many different jobs. I went through a couple different jobs. All the while continuing to play, on my own, playing on weekends, doing things like that. And practicing, but having no real direction. And it wasn't until I ran into that teacher in '83, Alan Weber, that it all started to make sense to me. And he helped provide me with the direction that put me into this new realm. And your question about regrets, yeah, I was mad. I was angry. I was disappointed. I had my plan, and it was gone. And I held a grudge for a while. I mean, but also at the very same time of holding that grudge, I pushed myself into this new area. Now today I have no regrets. I still get to play. I play clarinet. I very rarely ever get to play classical. Although I did get a piccolo solo.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. We'll get to that in a second.
So it led me into an area where I actually had a better chance of having a career by this shift in the dynamic,
right,
and this shift in genre. And I just grabbed it with both hands and just went off, and I dedicated myself as much as I had to the other thing.
Right.
And so, no, I don't. I mean, with anything whether it's music or whether it's life, you have no idea. If you make a left turn, you have no idea what the right turn would have ever done.
Right.
So you have what you have, and because of it, I wouldn't be sitting. If I didn't know, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I wouldn't have a million experiences that I've had. I wouldn't have a million friendships and relationships with other musicians and people. It's all brought me to where I am. So no, just if you get a wrinkle, ride the wrinkle, and take the next day and make the very most that you can get from the next day.
So it's interesting that you brought up the piccolo solo. So I have to ask you this because when I was teaching, almost all of my students have, at some point, have asked me the very same question that I'm about to ask you.
Okay.
What in God's name made you want to become a Philadelphia mummer?
I was 15 years old, and it seemed
Someone
like
put a gun to your head?
No.
All right, good.
I grew up in South Jersey. I was 15 years old, and two friends of mine from another community band that I was in, they were doing it, and the rehearsal space was right down the street from my house. And it turns out that some of my family had friends. It was a Broomall string band.
Okay.
So they're down National Park. Part of my family comes from National Park. So it turned out they knew that. And it seemed like, oh, I'm going to play saxophone. Let's go.
And it seemed like just worlds collided.
It just seemed like
there.
a great idea. Because I was in marching band, and
right.
I'd been in theater. I've been on stage my entire life. And it just saying, well, let's see. It's another, let's go do this. And you either get bit by the bug or you don't. And so my first period was 77. I've been in and out of a couple different groups, done a couple things here and there, and I'm very happy, very proud of where I've landed and this organization that I'm in, and the people here, and what now part of the whole mummer thing I got to get to where I get to be a music director.
Mm-hmm. Which would have been my next question.
It isn't necessarily that I want it to be, especially in this organization.
Why add another headache?
Because I'd already gone through all that with another group. But one thing that it really appeals to me is it gets back to teaching. I have the opportunity to have this group, and if they can walk away from here being better musicians,
right?
Because they're in this organization, and because I got to play a part of that. Once again, is there any greater?
No, it's a great achievement.
Yeah,
it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times that I run rehearsal. Like if you're playing a gig, and I run rehearsal, it is a great feeling. Like, all right, even if you focus on, we're going to get these 3 notes, and you spend 2 hours on 3 notes, making them sound as perfect as possible. And the difference between when you first started that rehearsal to that when that last note's played, and you hear that accomplishment of how great, even though it's 3 notes, you feel like you did your part, but then you also know that the people sitting down in their seats.
My toughest challenge one of my toughest challenges as a teacher has been to channel my perfection. I mean, I'm a perfectionist. Oh my God, am I a perfectionist? Yes. You've sat in my rehearsals, you know. But my challenge has always been to be a perfectionist without being a you ready to bleep me?
Stubborn person.
Are you ready to bleep me? No. Without being negative.
Right.
And that's an amazing challenge, and that's one of the essence of teaching: to be a perfectionist, to be demanding, and to be a human being at the very same time.
I mean, it's funny that there's times that we all get frustrated. We all do. It's part of human nature, and there's times, like for instance, this past year, I think it was the last Sunday rehearsal, and I think actually you were playing an Eagles tailgate. You had a gig.
Right.
And you were playing, so our music director emeritus here at the band, Frank Fordle, and I, we ran the rehearsal, and it got to the point that our drill master even pointed out to us, how about we do drill rehearsal now and then come back to music after? Because Frank and I, our looks on our faces, we were like, they're making mistakes that they've never made before in their life. We've been playing this since April, May, and there's mistakes that they're now playing. It's like, is it the nerves that New Year's Day is a couple days away? And it's, and unfortunately, I had to get a little stern, but the way I was stern was not like yelling and screaming. It was conveying a point of, you're screwing this up. You never made this mistake before. Get your heads in the game.
And that's the most difficult. That's one of the more difficult challenges of teaching. Mm-hmm. Is to find that line and try not to go across it,
right?
And achieve what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, that is very different. What was the rest of that? Did we cover that question?
Yes, okay. And so
I think I may be.
Although I got to tell you, there's been a whole bunch of New Year's days at 4 p.m. when I said I'm never doing this again.
Let me tell you something.
What the leadership, what the listenership has to understand is that at 4 p.m. you've been doing it for 12 hours.
I got to say, I think the longest, adding to that, the longest New Year's Day of my life had to be my first 2 years, 2007 and 2008. 2007, first off, it wasn't even on New Year's Day. It rained. So it went to either the 6th or the 7th, whatever that Saturday was, the following Saturday. And they wound up pushing the parade. So we get our makeup on. Then we find out the parade's been pushed back 2 hours due to high winds.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
So I'm sitting in makeup. We already left our clubhouse. So now we decided we're going to, since I was in Frowner at the time when we were going for the 5 in a row record. So they decided, what the heck, why don't we just turn this, a few run-throughs that we do for our families and friends with all the props and everything in the morning before we go to Broad Street. Why don't we make this into a rehearsal? So now we had a 3-hour rehearsal before we even got to Broad Street. So we were already drained at that point. I remember we did not get back to our clubhouse until 1 a.m. from doing the 2nd Street Parade. The following year, it was 2 a.m. and the prizes came out around 11:30 because the first string band did not appear on the TV until it was pitch black already due to pushing it back yet again to high winds and threat of rain.
One final thought, and it's something that I've experienced and something that your father has experienced. My son marched 3 parades with me, my youngest son, and your dad having the opportunity to do it with you, and that's one of the greatest amazing parts of this culture, of this hobby, is it's family. Yes. And to share it with. In Polish American right now, we have a young sax player who makes the fourth generation in Polish American, and you can't find that. You can't find that anywhere else.
I believe that's Gavin, right?
No, not even Gavin.
Gavin would be
Gavin third. Gavin's third.
4.
Really?
The grandfather.
I'm thinking of Patrick. But in any case,
I think Mark's grandfather was captain at some point.
There you go.
Walter Kropp.
There's another.
Yeah.
But it's that community. It's that family, and it's you're not going to find that in a whole lot of other organizations, and it's so unique to Philadelphia. And as a musician, how can you not want to at least try to experience that?
It's funny. So my father started doing this. His first parade was 1971. My oldest brother, Anthony, his first parade was 1998. And already at that point, my dad was saying, I got a couple years left in me.
Yeah.
And then the middle brother, Thomas, his first parade was 2002. That was my first year helping as a marshal. And I remember him saying on the bus after the judges, this is it. I'm done. and I remember him saying, I can't believe I went my whole mummers career without experiencing a first prize. So I don't know who talked him into doing one more year. The following year, he wins for the first time. Took him 30-something years to get a first prize. I didn't even start saxophone lessons yet. But it got to the point that he was starting to say, I'm done, before I even got involved. My father went until 2010.
Yeah.
He went an extra 4 years. And every year, I'm done. But he kept coming
Right.
back because he just loved the brotherhood and the family aspect.
Right.
So, I think I'm going to regret asking you this question, but I'm sure some of the students would like to know what it is like working with me on your music committee and also as your arranger. Now watch what you say here.
Now, so the people, the individuals listening to this, have they spent any time with you?
Yes.
Okay. They're not.
Oh, come on.
No, I didn't say that's negative.
Oh,
I didn't say
okay.
that's negative.
Well, let's enlighten them a little bit.
No, okay. I certainly will. You just threw me a hanging curve that I had to park.
It was more of a beach ball I just threw you.
Well, like you said at the beginning, that we have different ideas, different tastes about a number of things, different ideas of how to pursue something, how to do this and how to do that. But that's life. I mean, that just, if you can't negotiate that in life, you're never going to be able to negotiate it in string band. And it comes down to that. I respect you as an individual. I respect you as and I hate to use the word talent. My God, do I hate the use of talent?
No, I hate it too.
I respect I respect your accomplishment, your ability, your arranging ability, your sight into arrangements, because you bring your own creativity to the arrangements, as well should be. And you're a good dude. You're just flat out good.
Thanks, dude.
No, you are. You're a good dude.
Gnarly.
So so we get to. I was born in '62. Come on.
Gnarly.
But creative differences aren't necessarily unhealthy. Creative differences can be. It's how those creative differences are presented. But it really gets back to, do the two individuals respect each other? Yeah. And if they respect each other, you know that nothing I'm going to say is malicious, and I know that nothing you're going to say is malicious. You just have your strong opinion. I have my strong opinion. And a lot of times, especially here, or like with you in your situation, a lot of the situations you're in, you're the chief. I mean, you're for the organizational situation, you're the last word. So all these great ideas and everything, you have to take all these great ideas, and you have to decide, okay. We're going to do this.
Right.
And there's a lot of situations where a lot of times I'm in that situation here, where whether it's you or somebody else, and great ideas, and we're just like, okay, we're going to do this.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and I value friendship, and I appreciate professionalism and your accomplishments.
I gotta go on the record and say that Rob is one of the most well-respected guys in my book. Yes, there's times that we go at it, our heads butt, and he's saying, I think it's got to be this way. And now the one thing is, Rob is the musical director, and we have a theme committee, and they refer back to him because most of the time he's playing gigs and he's unable to attend the meetings. So I'm there in the meeting, and there's times I go and relay the message thinking he already heard it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the look on his face.
There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
The look on his face or the silence on the phone from his end. I sometimes question if his heart stopped because something that he was really in love with or that we've been working on has been changed. I mean, let me also say, and Rob, you would say this. There's times that we've gone on the street and music's been changed right on the spot. Like, we're going to play it this way now. And all you do is, everybody come here. Everybody huddles up and you say, look at this measure. See that dynamic? Cut that out. Play that out.
Right.
Or play it soft. Or cut that note out. Or change this art.
Right. Because there are changes that are happening right up until New Year's Day.
I would say that even the final version that you hear is what we do in front of the judges, I think. And that's
there have been many occasions that happened, yes.
All right, so
I'm not a big fan of that, but there have been many occasions that
for these listeners, they have to understand that you're trying to, besides putting on a great product on New Year's Day, you're also competing at the same time. But at the same time, I think some organizations lose their focus of what we originally were, or what our original goal was to entertain the crowd.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt.
So my next question. We're going to transition back to your life in music outside of string band.
Okay.
What inspired you to teach privately?
When I was in high school, I wasn't sure what I had three things that I thought I wanted to be. One, I wanted to be a professional musician.
Okay.
Two, I wanted to be a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
And three, I wanted to be a history teacher. So as a music director, I get to practice the professional musician and psychologist. I get to...
Don't judge me right. I know you're sitting there judging me right now.
No. So in any case, because I love history, I play Ben Franklin. I'm a tour guide. I've worked as a tutor. I'm in love with American history. And I've worked as a teacher. So I've wanted to be a teacher in one way or another forever. And my first student, I was 24 years old when I took on my first student. So it just that I always had a passion to be, I wanted to be a teacher. I just wanted to be a teacher.
All right, so the next question is going to be, what does music mean to you?
Oh, man. I don't know if I have an answer to that. It's everything. It's everything. It's my entire life. It just is. I mean, whether obviously professionally, it's allowed me to make a living. Personally, nothing can make me feel like a particular song, a particular moment. Nothing can make me feel that way. Either to lift me out of something or to reinforce a sad moment I'm going through, unfortunately. What does it mean to me? That's the very best answer. It's everything. It's everything. And once again, if it's not everything, and you do what I do for a living, get out.
So I have. So there's a couple two questions that I'm going to follow up with all the guests that come onto this podcast that I feel like I have to ask them, because to me, these two questions are probably the most unanswered questions in the world. And I think that...
And I'm expected to answer it.
Well, here's why it's the most unanswered. It's because there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
Brandon? All right, so what do you think the purpose of music is in life?
It's multi-purposed. It's soundtrack. I mean, can you imagine? Can you even a silent movie had a piano playing along? There's no way you can tell a story, no way you can live a story without a soundtrack. And everybody has their own soundtracks.
Yeah.
Whether it was back when I was a kid and it was cassettes, and you made mixtapes,
Wait, you mean
whether
it-
into CDs.
It wasn't a vinyl?
You can't record a vinyl. This is part of me dealing with Chris. Respectfully. No, so whether it's a cassette, you're making a mixtape, whether you're CDs, you're making a mixtape, whether you're putting playlists together, it's the soundtrack of your life. I mean, life just doesn't exist without it. And it doesn't even have to be music. It can be atmosphere. It can be a number of different things. So what does it? So what's it mean to life? What does it mean to?
What does it mean? What's the purpose?
The purpose is I think it's based in humanity, and then not even humanity, because birds communicate through music and animals communicate through music. It's so far beyond our comprehension. You hear something, you know whether you like it or not. Maybe you're challenged by it. Maybe it just makes you feel good. Yeah. But it's all encompassing, and I think it's far too big of an question to answer.
Well, it's funny that you said it's a soundtrack to life, because just imagine, and I said this, I did an interview for somebody a couple weeks ago to a month ago by now, and one of the questions that they asked me was, what do you think music means to the world? And they also said a response, like in rebuttal to what I said. They said, just imagine going for a car ride by yourself, and there's no such thing as a radio or music or even talk radio.
Right.
Just imagine how different
Solitude.
that experience would be.
Yeah, just exactly, absolute solitude. And that holds its place.
Yeah.
One thing that my students in the band get tired of hearing me say is that a rest is just as important as a note. It is just, you better play that rest just with as much conviction as a note, so that the space, the solitude, the silence is
music.
In a sense, it's music. So it can be, like I said, it can be your soundtrack. It can be stirring. It could be patriotic. It could evoke incredible emotion.
Yeah.
It can be so many. It can be so many different things. It's so widespread, and I'm happy that I get to. I'm ecstatic. I'm overwhelmed that I get to do it for a living.
I also say that music is also a language. It's everybody's second language.
It can be.
Because everybody, and there's no one in this world that you could tell me that they don't know what music is or never even heard of music. Everybody at least hears music at least once a day.
If it's instrumental, it transcends all language, and it becomes a language of its own.
So Rob, thank you for sitting with me.
Chris, my pleasure as always.
And I'm glad we didn't have to butt heads right now.